Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fair Life with Andrew McKee. I am Andrew McKee. And yes, hey, Kurt and Jan, thanks for joining. And Alicia, yes, glad you could join us too. I know you've been having a really rough time and a tough weekend at Maryland. So hopefully it's going somewhat good. And Fugly, hey, thanks for joining us on YouTube. And Dan, excellent. So yeah, okay, a lot of people haven't been on in a while. That's awesome. So cool. Yeah, it has been another interesting week, to say the least. I am still getting a lot of things organized for my life on the road year coming up, and it's going well. I think I'm almost there. I mean, as far as the organizational stuff and getting everything I need, pretty much done it. I mean, all that's left is to really just clean my boots and clean out my car and then pack everything. That's pretty much all I have left. So now I'm working on music and getting a lot of that done. I wish this has taken a lot longer than I expected it to, so I was hoping to work on a lot more music before now. But now that I've got everything else figured out, boom, the next several weeks, nothing, or primarily music is what I'm going to be doing. So that should be a lot more fun. And Kevin, hey. Oh yeah, the weather was perfect on Sunday. Well, that's at least something. And Kathy, hey, thanks for joining. Yeah, that is always the good thing about Faire. It's tough when weather is rough. I mean, it's a challenge to have as much fun. I do know some people that actually prefer the rain. I'm not one of them, but of course I've got to worry about strings and musical instruments. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot more difficult in rough weather. And when it's a beautiful, perfect day, the day just seems like it's on your side. Like it's just gonna be a downhill time the entire day. It's this lack of oppression that makes it seem all right. And yeah, Jen, couldn't agree more. Yeah, that Alicia is doing much better. So let's hope that continues. Oh, good. You got to see Shakespeare Approves. Yeah. Yeah, I should be seeing him in a few weeks over at the Louisiana Fair. So that should be fun. Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah. But, I think everybody should get the weather I mean, everybody likes different things. That's the reason we go to Faire, because there's a lot of different things and there's a little bit for everyone. So I'm not going to judge people too harshly for liking rain. If that's their thing, hey. And there's certainly something a little baptismal about just being out in the rain for a while. It has a nice kind of clean feeling in a way. So perfectly reasonable. Perfectly reasonable. Oh, Kevin, yeah, I was going to ask about that. Still, okay. Wow, okay. Portable solar panels and power stations have done the job. Okay. Keeping the laptops and fiber going. Good for you. Yeah, you should really do a YouTube video or something on exactly what you needed and how it worked. Because, yeah, I mean, you're like the poster boy for being prepared right now. So that's great. I'd love to hear details about exactly how it all came together. So yeah, let's talk at some point. And great, yeah, tickets for LARF, excellent. I'm looking forward. That's just a few weeks away. It's coming up quick, and I'll be heading over there on probably the 29th or 30th of this month, and then just be a few days away to Louisiana. So that'll be wild. Yeah, it should be interesting. I'm in charge of audio again, so I'm going to be helping all the different groups on the stages with their audio setup. So making sure that everybody's sound is as perfect as possible. So I'll be getting there a few days early and going out and just making sure all the stages are set up correctly and the sound is all right and everybody has power. And then if any of the groups are there, we can do sound checks. And here's hoping that some of them are, to make it a little easier on the weekend. Last year, there were several delays and I didn't get out there until I didn't get out there early, so I had to pretty much set up everything Friday night and Saturday morning and do that kind of thing, and it was a mess. I ended up spending most of the weekend just working on sound, and I didn't really get much playing music done. I did a little, but nowhere near what I wanted, and that is going to change this year. Not doing that this year. So get everything done ahead of time, but now at least I know what I was getting into. I don't know what you're talking about. That never occurred to me. Oh, excellent. That's awesome. So yeah, kind of a Thanksgiving at the at Faire. I like it. Yeah, that's interesting too, because I'd love to hear like I mean that's what happens. I mean, you think you're prepared or think you might be, and then stuff happens and you realize would have been better if I'd had this, and that's how you learn. I mean, so don't beat yourself up. It's one of those things where this was a test run, and not a pleasant test run, but it is what it is, and now you'll know what you need. I mean, it's hard to know that. It really is without. I mean, unless you really want to test it and just shut off your power and then see what you can do, which is a way to go, but that's not always practical, to say the least. To say the very least. Whew. Right. Admittedly, that's a long test run, but I think you've definitely figured out the pros and cons of your setup and what it's capable of. That's a very good way to put it, Alicia. I'm going to steal that. That is it. I like to say you don't know what you don't know until you learn it. I like it. Oh gosh, I don't even know how I would do that. I mean, I would just hide inside and never go out and make sure I had enough canned food to last for months, because I am so not used to deep snow or cold like that at all. I grew up down in Texas, and it's weird. My strategy now for the fair, for fairs and everything, is to go as far north as I can in the summer and as far south as I can in the winter. That's my approach. Yeah, I can't handle flurries. I cannot handle furries. Andrew, I am. Yes, it is true. Ah, but no, I'm getting I'm a delicate flower. What can I say? But I mean, that's important to know your limitations. Now, I mean, that's not to say I haven't powered through some really cold winter at a few fairs now and then, but still, we're not talking about negative numbers. It's just dealing with snow and dealing with freezing weather. It's not easy, but it's doable. You just have to you have to bear through it. Yeah, I know some people really like it, and I think part of it is just what you're used to, and what your natural interest is. I think both genetically and just interest. I mean, for me, I've always been kind of fascinated by the snow and the cold, but I'm not used to it. I really am not. I think I could get used to it if I had to, but I don't have to. So I may never get there. I may never get there. Wow. See, now that's just crazy. That's just crazy. I can't even imagine that, Alicia. Yeah. Negative wind chill. I mean, for me, generally with music, if it's over 50 degrees, I'm fine. If it's under 50 degrees, it's not so fine. My fingers just don't move as fast. I can't do the fast songs, fast tunes on my recorder. I mean, guitar, I can't go as fast on bog. I mean, it's that kind of thing. So it just gradually gets slower and slower and slower as the temperature gets lower and lower and lower. And that's a problem. Now, it's not too bad between 50 and 40. I can kind of power through it in short bursts. Like, okay, I need to really go fast on this song. I can do it. But when you start to get below 40, my fingers just don't move as fast. And you get down to the 35, 32, under freezing. and it really hits. And it's not to say I can't play music, but it's not the same. I really can tell a difference. Yeah, like it's a big surprise. Right, right, right. There's a limit, and I think that limit is different for everyone. Now, the nice thing is I've kind of conditioned myself. Several years ago, I started really trying to get used to hotter temperatures. I set the thermostat higher at my house, and that I got used to it. Where, well, my room was the warmest room in the house, so I set the thermostat higher, and then my room was even warmer than everywhere else. So I got used to it, and after a while, I mean, it took a good year or two, but I got used to it, and now 90 degrees at Faire isn't that bad for me. I can get through the day okay. 95, it's a rough day, but I can do it. But it's really, the trick for me is I can get through pretty easily anything under 98. But when you start getting above that into the hundreds, that's where it gets rough, and you really have to be careful. Pretty much under body temperature, I'm okay. That's kind of what I've discovered with training. Wow. Yeah, I can believe it. Oh my gosh. Okay, now you're just freaking me out. I don't even want to think about that kind of thing. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and talk about. I mentioned that I'm working on music right now, and I'm. I think, well, as a musician, I know some of you watching know exactly what I'm talking about as far as this, but there's always a few songs that slip through the cracks that you never worked on an arrangement of, or you never learned, or you played once and it didn't really catch on with the audience, so you just never played it again and you don't even remember how to play it. I mean, that kind of thing. And we all have those songs that occasionally somebody asks for and you're like, oh yeah, I don't really know that one. And that's kind of what I've been working on now. I mean, I'm working on some other things too, but I'm trying to get through and fill in those important gaps. And believe it or not, one of them is a big one that gets requested all the time, and I really don't have a solo arrangement of it. I've played it on the recorder most of my life in some way or another, and I can jam with others, no problem. But solo, I've actually never done a singing arrangement of it. And that song is Whiskey in the Jar. I know, Whiskey in the Jar. I mean, that is one of the most popular Irish songs out there, and I think that's part of why I've held off, because it's so overplayed. I always felt like, why would I want to do that? Why? So I've kind of not done that. Yeah. So, I mean, all of you are familiar with Whiskey in the Jar, right? I assume. Let me know if you're not. But, yeah. Yeah, she's really, yeah, you really, really, really. Like I said, we've all got that blind spot. And while I've taken care of most of mine, this one's the big one. And the truth is, I've never really been happy with the arrangements. I mean, most of the ones I've heard, I haven't really been crazy about. And there are a few that are like, it's okay. And the arrangement I used to do with my old bandmate Mark Gunn as the Brobdingnagian Bards, it's, yeah, I mean, it was okay. I mean, it was a decent arrangement. It was certainly one of the better ones out there, but I've never been thrilled with it. Right, and that's kind of it. I do the melody all the time, but I don't sing it, and that's sort of the difference. Yeah, the Bedlam Bards version is certainly one of the better ones. I think so too. Honestly, I think theirs at least was a pseudo influence of ours as the Brobdingnagian Bards. Although Metallica probably had a bit of an influence on Mark, because come on. Well, I mean, Thin Lizzy came out first, and then Metallica kind of did a variation on their arrangement, is how I would phrase it. Thin Lizzy was what, the 70s? And Metallica was, they did their version in the 90s. So, yeah. Yeah, and well, I mean, there are so many words out there. It's an old song. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, that's the that's the Bedlam Bards do a whiskey for the bard. They end their song like that. So yeah, that's always fun. Okay, for those of you that don't know, and honestly, I bet probably most of you don't because you know the song, but you probably don't know the history. It's an old song. It's actually been around for a very long time. In certainly different forms, but it stems from the 1600s. Yeah, really. I mean, most of the songs, like the drinking songs we do at Faire, they were written in the 60s, 50s. I mean, some of them are written in the 1800s. Most of them are not that old, but this one is old. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, it's the story about. Well, let me see. I'll get this right. It's about a notorious Irish highwayman, Patrick Fleming, who was hanged in 1650, and that's essentially what it was modeled after, and he gained a lot of notoriety, mainly just because he stood up to the crown, the British, and the Irish and British peasants love that kind of thing. So it kind of developed this sort of Robin Hood kind of air about him. And because of that, yeah, a lot of songs and poems were done. And this was one of them. It's evolved a lot over the centuries. It's changed a lot. I think the version that we do now, that we're familiar with, is primarily came about in the 1800s, around 1850 or so. That's the one that that's pretty close to what we do now. Before that, it's certainly been different. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, Fugly knows. I'm sure he's done the old version. I think it's there's a broadsheet that is a version of it called The Sporting Hero. Bet you're familiar with that one, or Whiskey in the Bar, I think is the other name for it. But it has, some of the lyrics are kind of the same. That has a couple of extra verses, and those verses actually help explain the song. Because for me, one of the problems with it was that the lyrics, they seemed a little all over the place. Like it always felt like verses were missing. It didn't really make a lot of sense, and those extra verses actually help explain a lot, like why Jenny betrayed the highwayman, and essentially he was a drunk. The extended songs kind of go and do a kind of make it clear that he would drink a lot and come over to her place drunk all the time, and she told him not to, and she finally had enough of it and said, okay, fine, and took the powder out of his gun and took his sword so he couldn't kill anyone, and told the authorities where he was. But that was why. And it also showed why he wasn't completely angry with her. He still had an affection for her, because at least he partly blamed himself. Anyway, it's also interesting that there are researchers and who look at it and say that the Musha Ring Damadu Damada is a bastardized, lilting version of Old Gaelic, and it actually had meaning back in the day. I've looked at the research. I can see both sides of that. Some people say it's just a standard lilt it's common in folk music and Irish music. I don't know. I mean, I think it could be. It's quite possible, but it's a game of telephone that's gone for so many years that you really can't tell what it originally was unless somebody finds a written down version from several hundred years ago at this point, and it's not going to happen. So, yeah. Right. But yeah, that's sort of what I'm working on. I don't know. I'm thinking about maybe adding an extra verse from some of the older versions that help explain it a little bit. But at the same time, I'm not sure if people would like that, because people tend to like those types of pub songs because they know them. They're familiar and they can sing along and there's no surprises. So I don't know. But that's what I'm working on. I don't know if you have any suggestions or thoughts about it. I'd be interested. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with it. Hopefully, I'll have something in the next week or two, and I can play. I might play what I'm the arrangement I'm thinking of here, and you can tell me how bad it is and give me some tips. But you're not wrong. But for Irish music, that there's already been a ridiculous amount of research in that for the last 200 years, and I don't think that's going to happen, honestly. Oh, really? You think so? Okay, okay, that's interesting to know. I might. Uh, I mean, there's a couple of verses I could add. I'd probably just add the one. There's one that actually talks about how he escapes from prison and goes off, and it's not a great verse, so I kind of see why they might have cut it, but it's not a bad one either, and it does sort of help with the disconnect between two of the verses of, he's being taken off to prison and now he's looking for his brother. What? Doesn't really make sense. That's an interesting thought. It's an interesting spin on it. Oh yeah, that's primarily. I mean, now that I'm mainly just going on the road, I'm going to be working a lot of music. Oh right. I mean, you're not wrong. That some songs have to be updated a little bit just to be even possible, and others are just the whole premise is not doable anymore. Bad versus that authenticity. I like that. That's okay. That's a good point. I thought about even trying to, you know, use the old verse and then fix a couple of things. Change a couple of words to make it flow better, and I might do that. That's generally how songs progress anyway. People drop a verse here, add a verse there, change a verse, and make it flow better. The group's not from this part of Ireland; they're from this other part, so they change the location. I mean, it just happens. So yeah, that's going to be a thing. But yeah. Right. And that's kind of it. I mean, Metallica did a version of Whiskey in the Jar. I mean, it was mainly popular in the 60s when the Dubliners did a version. They kind of made it a huge deal again. I mean, it had been known before in kind of as a folk song thing, but the Dubliners doing it really brought it out. The Irish Rovers did a version, and then Thin Lizzy did it, and yeah, but then Metallica did it, and that really changed things a bit. So yeah, you're not wrong. You are not wrong. And sometimes people kind of take a song and then make serious changes and then try to claim it that it's actually theirs, that they wrote it, even though it's very derivative, and and try to do a copyright on it. Wild Mountain Time. But yeah. That is one way to do it. That is one way. I usually like to throw in some these and thous, and that usually helps. People just assume that it's old because nobody in their right mind would write a song with that in there. Yeah. You always get that. I always describe it as a game of telephone because because it's such an oral tradition type thing, people hear the song and then they try to sing it later, and they try to sing it and they try to sing it. And, sometimes I think they forget the exact phrasing and just fill it in based on their use of language. Sometimes I think they just change it because they want to. That's always the classic approach, yes. Yeah, Gaelic, no. No. I've never really been great with Gaelic. I've taken some Gaelic classes. I've tried. I mean, I probably could, but I don't know. I mean, I think at the very least to start, I should just work on the song that people want to hear because people want to sing along, and that's the trick. You really learn about why a song is popular, and singing along is important to people. They want something familiar, and that's what makes a good pub song. That is probably one of the best points I've heard so far tonight. uh, only on Star Trek holidays. But yes, official Star Trek holidays. Big difference. So yeah, moving on, let's go ahead and jump into 7 reasons because yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of apropos. Yeah, let's do 7 reasons that Whiskey in the Jar is a popular song. Because, you know, I've often wondered why it is myself. I've always thought it was a bit overrated, honestly. I mean, I didn't think it was a bad song, but the fact that it is so ridiculously popular, it does boggle my mind a bit. I'm not going to lie. But, you know, I mean, that's the thing. Everybody has different taste. Some people love the obscure song and the popular song they think is bad. Others, they'll love one popular song, but not like another popular song. It's just, that's what makes our, our society at least interesting. Yeah, sometimes that's how you learn the foreign song or songs. You just, yeah, you just do it phonetically. Well, you probably have a song about everything at this point. Well, probably not everything, but actually, yeah, you should write a song about how you have a song for everything. I like that. Well, yeah, I mean, we all have our. I don't dislike Whiskey in the Jar. I just don't. I never loved it, and that was the thing. I didn't hate it. I mean, I thought it was okay. For me, that song is the Mermaid song. I cannot. I just have never liked the Mermaid song, and it wasn't horrible. So I started playing it with Mark because everybody wanted to hear it, and I was like, yeah, it's okay. I mean, it was probably one of my least favorite Bard songs, and that's a statement. I mean, Brobdingnagian Bard songs is what I mean, and but we'd play it regularly because people wanted to hear it, and I was like, okay. I mean, I didn't hate it. I could always veto it and say I didn't want to do it anymore, and I didn't, to be fair. But it just got to where we'd play it at every pub scene, at every fair, every weekend. And it just got to a point where I really wanted to just not hear that song anymore. It got overplayed for me. So a song that was turned into a and that was a problem. Mm. Oh, dear God. I don't know if I want to know that. Oh, that's nice. I love Lily the Pink. Now, that's one of my favorite songs. So, yeah. Okay, now you're just throwing out things. Yeah. So let's go ahead and jump to 7 reasons. 7 reasons Whiskey in the Jar is a popular song. Number 7, clapping. Because you get to clap in it, and people love clapping. I was surprised, too, when I first learned this truth about Faire and Faire music, that if there's clapping in a song, people like it more. It's a phenomenon I've witnessed firsthand over and over, and it is very true. People just like to get involved in the song. They like to be a part of it. It's that whole whole aspect that just makes people appreciate it more. They want it, yeah. It's just a weird thing, a phenomenon I've gotten used to. I was waiting for somebody to make the joke. I knew somebody would, and it doesn't surprise me that it was you. Okay, number 6. Number 6. It tells a story. Now, my old bandmate, Mark Gunn, liked to say, for a long time, he would say that to be a good song, you have to tell a story. I completely disagreed with him. I think usually good songs tell stories, but there are exceptions. There are certainly songs that tell no story at all, and and are considered great. Usually because of an amazing melody or rhythm. And I always like to break down music as having three main elements. Lyrics, melody, and rhythm. And you can do, they don't all have to be phenomenal. In fact, if they are, sometimes that can work against you because they can overshadow each other. So normally what happens is one of those is really good and the other two complement that. And that's what you go with. It doesn't have to be lyrics. So you can have a really good rhythmic song with a kick-ass melody and, maybe some lyrics. And that's fine. And exactly. And that's really it. I mean, but that being said, if you tell a story, I think it definitely helps the lyrics shine. And that can help make the song great. Although, if it has a bad melody and bad rhythm, you're probably screwed. But if it tells a good story and the other stuff's good, then okay, that really helps. Really, really helps. So, okay, let's jump to number 5. Rooting for the bad guy. I mean, that's a very popular thing. Like I said before, Patrick Fleming, the highwayman that the Whiskey in the Jar was based off of, became very famous. He was not a good person. I mean, he robbed and killed, the representatives of the crown and the poor. He did both. He was not a nice guy, but because he stood up to the crown, that was still a big deal, and people gave him a lot of credit for it, which maybe not deserved, but, I mean, it's like Charlie Chaplin always said, the poor will always get a kick out of somebody kicking the rich in the butt. It's always been true and will never change. So, yeah, that's kind of it. So yeah, rooting for the bad guy here is a popular trope. They do it in movies, they do it in television shows. It's a thing. And so you have to walk a line. You can't just be all bad and evil, although they've tried to do it in the last couple of decades of movies and TV. But usually it's kind of like there's good and bad. There's a dichotomy. Well, and that's the thing. Vader was redeemed, and that's the idea. He was good once, he turned bad, and then at the end, he saw the error of his ways and got good. And there was still good in him. And that's the whole thing. It was sort of like a tragic figure. And that's, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting route. Something I think they kind of missed in the newer movies. Number 4. It's foundational. And that's I mean, it's an old song, but it became popular in the 60s. And that's when Faire started. Faire started in the 1960s. And when they had music for them, well, I mean, some of it was very traditional music, but then they started doing popular folk songs that kind of worked. And that's great because this was a popular folk song that was old, that would work at a Renaissance fair. So it kind of was like, hey, this is nice. And it really, I think part of that was timing. I think if Ren fairs had started earlier, like in the 1920s or something, I don't know, maybe a lot of the songs we play at Ren Fair would be very different. It's an interesting to think about an alternate history timeline where Faire started in the 1920s. Wow, that's kind of scary. You're not wrong. That is very true. Yeah. Yeah, that's also very true. It only has to get popular once and then it's tradition. Boy, I relied on that a few times. Okay. Number 3. Different music genres. When Thin Lizzy did a version of Whiskey in the Jar, and then later Metallica, all of a sudden, people who like different genres of music both liked the song. And it had a really wide range of interest, wider than most Ren Fair songs and pub songs and folk songs. It just it really transcended that standard genre, and that really gave it something special, a wider appeal. So yeah, I think that really helped with people liking it. Number two, it has a fun chorus. I mean, come on. I mean, certainly I'm not in love with Whiskey in the Jar, but it's not a bad song, and the chorus is fun. It's fun to sing along to. That's one of the reasons I enjoyed it and didn't veto it back in the day. It was, you know, the chorus was kind of fun. I mean, I thought the lyrics, they left something to be desired. I thought they didn't quite all make sense, and they jumped around a little bit, but the chorus was fun, and that's really what you need for a good pub song a lot of the time. So, okay. Number one. This is an obvious one. Whiskey is in the title. I mean, come on. I mean, do you think it would have been as popular as if it was peppermint schnapps in the jar? I think not. I mean, even vodka in the jar would not have made a great song. Nope. But whiskey in the jar? I mean, whiskey is just one of the most popular drinks. One of the most popular names of drinks. Everybody knows it. And I think that just was the perfect route for the song. Exactly. Repetitive, so people can remember it and sing along. Definitely. I mean, that definitely helps. Definitely. I think that's a good one too. So, okay. There we go. With the 7 reasons. I guess we can go with 8 with Fooglies too. And yeah, that is, I think, why it is such a popular song. We're already getting pretty late now. Oh, wow. Yeah, let's jump over to the Faire map. And not as many fairs as before, as last weekend, and definitely not as the weekend before, because, dude, that was crazy. But I think I have the map right now, so I think we're okay. Let's jump in here and see if we can... Yeah, there we go. Woohoo! Okay, and we got the laser pointer. Yay! Okay. Starting in the upper right-hand corner, as always, we have King Richard's Faire in Carver, Massachusetts. It's the 7th out of 8 weekends, and the theme is Highland Happenings. Then jumping over to the Connecticut Renaissance Fair, we have in Lebanon, Connecticut. It's also 7 out of 8 weekends, and the theme is All Hallows Weekend. Jumping over to New York, we have the Lake George Renaissance Fair. This is a fairly new fair. It started in 2021 in Fort Anne, New York. And it's just the one weekend. So yeah, a newer fair, just for one weekend. Then jumping down, we have the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair in Manheim, Pennsylvania. This is weekend 9 out of 11 because they do a ridiculous number of weekends. And so many that they triple up on themes. The theme for this weekend is Halloween Days and Spooky Nights 1. Next weekend, the following weekend, will be Halloween Days and Spooky Nights 2. And the weekend after that, you guessed it, Halloween Days and Spooky Nights 3. Oh, Pennsylvania. Okay, jumping down to Maryland. We have the Maryland Renaissance Festival, which is sold out, unfortunately. This is weekend 8 out of 9, so just 2 more weekends left in Annapolis, Maryland. But close to it, and this is interesting, you have the Enchanted Woodland Fairy Festival in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. And it's just one day on Saturday, the 12th, and it's a fairy festival. So pretty close to the Maryland Festival, but since it's sold out, I don't know, maybe they'll get a few. This is its first year, so we'll see how that goes. Kind of interesting. Kind of interesting indeed. Yes, and don't forget that that Alacia will continue to be at Scapa Leather at the Maryland Renaissance Fest, and it is sold out. But if you're going anyway and you already got your ticket, go stop by and say hello. Definitely. Yeah, I wish I was going. I still have never been to that fair. I'm going to get there someday. I definitely will. Jumping down to Carolina, we have the Carolina Renaissance Festival in Huntersville, North Carolina. And it is weekend 2 out of 8, and the theme is Wizards and Revels Weekend. Jumping over to Tennessee, we have the Tennessee Medieval Fair in Harriman, Tennessee. This is weekend 2 out of 3. And then up to Ohio, we have the Ohio Renaissance Festival in Waynesville. This is weekend 7 out of 9. And yeah, it's Romance Weekend. So woohoo! Jumping over to Iowa, we have the Iowa Renaissance Festival, just the one weekend only, in Middle Amana, Iowa. It goes on in both spring and fall, and this is the fall version of it, just for the one weekend. Yeah, more fairs have started doing that, where they have a spring version of the fair and a fall version of the fair, especially for the smaller fairs are doing that more. We'll see if that trend continues. It's becoming interesting. Yeah. Going down to St. Louis, St. Louis Renaissance Festival in Forrestal, Missouri. This is the 5th out of 6 weekends, and the theme is Oktoberfest. Another popular October theme. Then jumping over to Kansas City, we have the Kansas City Renaissance Festival in Bonner Springs, Kansas. This is the last weekend, the 7th out of 7 weekends. And the theme is, they only do it for one weekend, Halloween days and spooky nights, because they just love copying themes from other fairs. Got to come up with original ideas, guys. Jumping down to West Plains, Missouri, we have Oz Fair Renaissance Festival. This is its first year, and it's just the one weekend only. So a new fair is starting up. And speaking of newer fairs, in Texas, we have the Cottonwood Fair. This is its second year. It started last year in Amarillo, Texas, just this one weekend. And then, of course, we have the Texas Renaissance Festival coming up and for its first weekend out of 8. And the theme will be Oktoberfest. Then going over to Del Rio, Texas, we have the Del Rio Renaissance Fair. This is also its first year. One weekend only, and right next to you can practically see Mexico from the fair. I only know of a few fairs that can do that, and this is one of them now. Yeah, I think, Del Rio, for those of you not from Texas, I guess the main claim to fame of Del Rio, Texas, is it's next to Laughlin Air Force Base, for those of you that know the country based on where the military bases are. Okay, going over to Nevada, we have in Las Vegas, Nevada, we have the Age of Chivalry Las Vegas Renaissance Festival. It is a 3-day weekend, Friday to Sunday, and it's been going on for a while. This fair's been going on since '94, so it's become a staple of Las Vegas. Then jumping over to California, we have the Northern California Renaissance Fair in Hollister, California. It's the 5th out of 6 weekends, and the theme is Carnival and Masquerade. Whew. Okay, got it. That was close. Yay. Okay. Yeah, I know, Maryland, I'm glad that's become a favorite. I really need to get over there. Oh, right. St. Louis and Wentzville. Yeah, they labeled it wrong. Sometimes the problem is they have the fair in one site and then they have the office in another, or the mailing address, and it gets complicated. Either way, it's around that area. But I will make a note of that. Yeah, that's the other problem. I mean, for me, yeah, I think it's definitely something I'm going to check on for next year. I've got to fill up this time slot between Dragon Con and Louisiana, and that is one of the places I'm going to be looking at. So, yeah, it's always tough. Yeah, that's the other problem. I mean, some fairs, they have a limit. I mean, they just run out of room, and they have no more room to expand. It just doesn't seem very fair-like if you have a 30-story building, that you built up. Or, if the land could support it, I guess they could go down and build tunnels and make it very dungeon-like and have some cool stuff, but I'd hate to see the insurance premiums. Right. That's a brand new one. And that's, that just started this year. So something to check out for you. Fugly, take a look. Yeah, that's kind of it. I don't know, maybe Maybe I'm going about doing my list wrong, and I need to start making sure that it's the physical address and not the mailing address, because I think that's where I'm getting the mistake. So that's actually a good tip for the future. So I'll take a look at that. Yeah, you should check it out. You might want to just go if you have the weekend free, just to check it out, and then maybe look at performing next year. I mean, yeah, it's if it's close, hey, that's always good. You might be right. You might be right. Well, it's already 7:46, and man, this is later than I. Well, I got talking about whiskey in the jar, and me and music. It's like me and computers. Those are two subjects. If it gets tech or music, I'll lose 30 minutes in no time at all. But hey, that's fair life. So I'll let you know how whiskey in the jar is going next week, and definitely have a good week. Good days, good nights, good friends, good fun, good drink, good song, and as always, a fair life. Take care.